Welcome to Life's Rich Tapestry, a podcast exploring the narrative of people's layered lives. Listen in on courageous conversations spoken from the heart. Gain insight into another's life as we tackle compelling topics which will expand your mind, help you gain perspective, and might even inspire you to do things differently. My name is Evelyn, and I look forward to your company. And welcome to another show of Life's Rich Tapestry. My next guest, Neville Burns, was born with a love of wildlife and was fascinated by any wild creatures that he came across. First shown a Bluetongue lizard at the age of 5 by his father, Neville made up his mind to catch one. At 8, he caught his first snake, and at 12, he received his first mildly venomous snake bite. And it was the panicked reaction of adults that were present that inspired Neville to want to tell people the truth about snakes, and in particular, venomous ones. His insatiable passion would see adventurous travels throughout Australia and the world, encountering many snakes and meeting like-minded herpetologists. Now, with over 60 years' experience, Neville has built a reputation as the best in the business as far as educating people about venomous snakes. Now, Neville is by nature a storyteller, endowed with a wry and quintessentially Australian sense of humour. Now, this trait has served him well when he presented shows in wildlife parks, educated attendees at reptile demonstrations, or while lecturing students. Now, Neville has appeared on television, been a columnist for 2 reptile magazines. He's produced educational DVDs. He's a published author and a sought-after speaker. And today, he is with me here on Life's Rich Tapestry, the up-and-coming podcast I'd like you to know. So welcome, Neville. I'm so grateful to have you here with me today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's so great. All stories start at the beginning. So I want to start at the beginning, actually. Your love of wildlife. It started from your father. Now, was he as keen as you in those earlier days with reptiles, or was it you that...
It was me that inspired Dad. He did like animals, and he was an outdoor sort of person. The Bluetongue that he got me so interested in was one that he'd found on the road, and he just picked it up so it wouldn't get run over. He also had a friend that kept things like Bluetongue, so he decided to give it to him. And it was when he brought it home to show me that I became so fascinated and decided I had to have one.
Oh, my goodness. And you were only 5 at the time, weren't you?
I was 5 then, yeah.
What area did you grow up in?
At that stage, we were at Mortdale, which is a southern suburb of Sydney. But just before I caught my first snake, we moved to Cronulla. And apart from the beach area, Cronulla was pretty much an outer suburb, lots of natural bush, plenty of wildlife.
What was the first snake that you caught?
A juvenile brown snake. They are the second most venomous snake in the world. I didn't realise what it was, of course, being only 8 years old, and thank God it was only a baby one. But I took it with a friend who was with me when I caught it and had it in a tin can and was showing it to people at the local shop. And somebody said, I think that's a brown snake. And I thought, ooh, I don't think Mum will let me have that. So I hid it at the neighbour's place, and his son swore secrecy with me. But I didn't realise that someone had gone to Mum and said, listen, your son was seen with a snake. So when I didn't bring it home, Mum put 2 and 2 together and told the neighbour who killed the snake. Oh. And, of course, I blamed the son. I never knew until 20 years later that it was Mum. Oh. And, if he ever hears this, I hope you'll forgive me because I never spoke to him again.
Oh my goodness! Isn't it funny what we do when we're younger? But your first snake bite, because I think your first snake bite this was the thing that inspired you to want to inform people about venomous snakes. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I knew the snake was mildly venomous. I was going to get a badly swollen hand. That was about it. But as I was only 12, nobody had listened to me, The adults know everything. Oh, you got to go to hospital. You probably have to have antivenom. You could die. And I thought, hang on, people need to know the truth. This little animal was defending himself. I was handling him. I don't blame the snake for, resenting me handling him. He's bitten me. He's done all he can to defend himself. Unfortunately, when we went to the hospital, I took the snake with me because I didn't trust anyone not to kill it, and the police had ended up taking it from me. And their theory was it was obviously dangerous because when the policeman put his foot on it, it bit his boot.
Oh, oh my goodness.
So that really did inspire me. I thought people need to know the truth. The whole combination of the whole reaction of everyone around me and the fact that people could fear an animal so greatly without any real reason.
So many people are so afraid of snakes.
Terrified.
All your years' experience, have you kind of come up with a theory why so many people are afraid of snakes?
Not really. Not
Okay.
really. I think human nature, we tend to, if somebody's afraid of something, they tend to put that fear onto other people.
Yeah.
And I mean, it dates right back to the Garden of Eden, And
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
we've got a lot to overcome to make people like snakes.
That is so true. Now, after your snake bite at 12, as I was reading through your book, which I really, really enjoyed, A Gift from the Snake That Bit Him, you took off. At 16, you just took off and you traveled to far North Queensland. Yep. And this is where you started becoming more, snakes were all over the place. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I had a friend who came to me where I was working my first job after high school as a shop assistant, and he said, I'm going to take off from home and go to North Queensland. Make a long story short, I said, I'll go with you. He decided not to go, and I'd already made up my mind.
Wow.
So I sneaked out of home one night, left a note for my mum, said Mum and Dad were separated. I said, please don't tell Dad for a couple of days, which of course she had to do.
Okay.
But that gave me enough time to get away. And I caught the train to Hornsby and hitchhiked from there. And 3 days later I was in the Pioneer Valley inland from Mackay in Queensland.
There was a part that I read in the book, Owens Creek.
Owens Creek, yeah.
Owens Creek. That kind of freaked me out a bit, I must admit. It seemed to be like a snake heaven for you when you went there.
Absolutely. I called it snake paradise because there was a flying fox camp there and they feed on them. It was an ideal place for them. So the snakes were there in huge numbers and they were monsters because they had so much food laid on. I mean, flying foxes, could be found in the trees, thousands of them, literally tens of thousands, from a metre up to the top of the trees. Mm-hmm. So the snakes had no trouble getting a meal, and they were all overfed and oversized. But they were very common. There was a creek ran through the middle. The rest of the land around, most of it was cane fields, but where this was a patch of rainforest. It was absolutely incredible.
I know, yeah, you described that, but I was really freaking out when I was reading that part of the book because it just seemed like they were everywhere and they were so big as well. Sorry, what kind of pythons were they?
Carpet pythons.
They're carpet pythons.
In fact, they were so big, I didn't know the distribution of some of the snakes up north. The way they were describing them, I thought I was on to scrub pythons, which grow even larger, but they were just outsized snakes. I mean, the biggest one I got there was just under 14 foot long. Oh the old measurement, and I mean thick. It was hugely built, and friends of mine that were years older than me and had much more experience said they had never seen carpet snakes like them.
Are they venomous or poisonous?
They're not venomous. They do have sharp teeth, as I found out. I got bitten by the second one I caught, bit me on the wrist when I was showing it to some neighbours there at Owens Creek later that day.
Yeah.
And 13 days later I popped a tooth out from the actual bite that had stuck in the flesh there.
Oh,
and I hadn't been aware of it. They're very fine, and it's just like being given 40 needles at once. It hurts a bit, and depending on how much they hang on, they can do a fair bit of damage, but you ignore it.
So when they bite you, they hang on?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
A friend of mine recently got scarred for life by one that grabbed his wrist and then spun its whole weight on his head, and the teeth just ripped his wrist to pieces.
Oh, my God.
Unbelievable. I don't know how many stitches he had.
Wow.
But he's scarred for life, without a doubt.
Oh, my God. That would just be so horrible.
But for people in the industry, we just, it's a carpet snake. Don't worry about it.
It's not a big deal. Yeah. We'll get more into snakes in a second because I just want to, because you've got such a great history and I'd like to share some of that. So after this big hitchhiking trip up north, you came back home and then you were an animal handler for Skippy the bush kangaroo, and which for those of you who are listening, who might not be from Australia, it was a Australian television show, and it was about a kangaroo who befriended a young boy.
Okay, I was responsible for going out with the film crews to different places, being in charge of different animals, which meant having them ready for the filming, controlling the animals. I mean, there were 14 different skippies, and most of them were only semi-domesticated. So they were always taking off into the bush or, trying to escape, and we were after them. And it was a pretty exciting sort of job. Plus, it was well paid. I was only 17 then, and I was getting good money, and it was so exciting to be there. I mean, I met some of the stars of Australian television at that time. I got to know all the crew. I've quickly got a reputation as the snake man.
Oh, okay.
And,
okay.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It was great.
Wow. No, it sounded exciting as well. And I remember hearing about that show as well. And some of it looked a bit fake, with the kangaroo. But I mean, for the 60s, because it was in kind of the late 60s that it aired.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I was only there for about 3 or 4 months, and then I felt the bug to go back up north again.
Okay. You know what? As I was reading your book, you are such an adventurous spirit, because so young and going out into the bush looking for snakes.
Well, basically, I've never thought of myself as, you're adventurous. It was just something I had to do. It was just me. People say to me, why do you do what you do? And I said, it's not what I do, it's what I am. And there's no explanation for it. I was shy as far as the opposite sex. I was very shy with women. I wasn't a confident, macho type. But you give me reptiles, I could talk to anyone.
So you went up to Queensland again. You went up to North Queensland, past Cairns and Kuranda, is that right?
I had 14 trips over the next few years to North Queensland.
Yeah. And so and I was reading in your book, you were even considering you might move there. Is that correct?
Yes, I was, yeah.
Is it because there's more snakes up there?
Oh, yeah, and I fell in love with the rainforest. I mean, the rainforest contains 3/4 of our wildlife.
Yeah.
And, there were things like crocodiles. I saw my first crocodile show there, and I knew I wanted to work with crocodiles.
Yeah.
It was just incredible.
Yeah. It seems that crocodiles and snakes go together.
Oh, absolutely.
That's so interesting. Now, okay, so you went up there, and I want you, then you ended up coming back but I want you to tell us what happened to you on the 23rd of March, 1969.
You're referring to the brown snake,
yes.
Right? Okay, a friend of mine who was a lot more experienced than me rang me to say that he'd caught a brown snake at Taranah, which is only out near Oberon, not that far from here. And he said, Nev, this is the meanest snake I've ever handled. Now, knowing how extremely experienced he was, I should have listened. I went down. I've never seen anything like it. The snake had an incredible attitude. He just wanted to bite people. And I thought, he's only about average 5 foot long, but he's just dynamic. Several times when I held him by the tail, he was up around my face, and that scared me.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I wanted him to do shows with, and Merv was silly enough to let me have him. I took him home. The following Sunday, I was showing some neighbours, had some visitors that were scout leaders, and I was showing them the snake. And I'd handled him on the Wednesday night and nearly been bitten by him. So on the Sunday afternoon, I was being very wary, and all of a sudden he just came straight into my face. On pure reflex, I brought my left arm up, as you might, to block a blow, for instance, and took the bite on the wrist, or it would have been on the face, and I wouldn't be talking to you now.
Oh, God.
But he hung on and chewed, and I remember my mum saying, Neville, what's wrong? I said, he won't let go. And at the time, I didn't want to hurt his fangs. So I was gently trying to extricate him. I wouldn't be gentle now. There were 9 puncture marks. Now, a lot of bites are dry bites. They don't always inject their venom when they bite. It's up to the snake. If they're injecting into an animal they're going to eat, yes, they inject venom. If they're defending themselves, they quite often don't. They're just trying to scare you away. So this one really meant it. He'd pumped in all the venom he could, and those days was different treatment to these days, so I carried out first aid. Went down the hospital, the doctor said, oh, my God. He said, how many times did he bite you? And I said, once, but he chewed. And he said, look, I know normally we wait and test for anti-venom, but he said, no human being can survive that bite. without anti-venom, so they gave me anti-venom. Last thing I remember, I believe my sister was there at the time. She's a retired nurse, but she was a triple certificate nurse, so she really knew her stuff. And she said my eyes suddenly rolled back. The heart machine went crazy. Doctor raced her out the door. And she told me only recently that sometime later she was showing the blood results of my bite to one of the doctors, and he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." She said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your brother dying." She said, "Oh, he's alive." And he said he couldn't be. He said, "Nobody could survive with blood like that." My white blood cell count was two and a half times normal due to the destruction of red blood cells. They had to give me blood thinners because I ended up with a blood clot in the arm and a blood clot in the leg. I was declared clinically dead 3 times, but they still had to keep giving me antivenom. So I had 4 times the normal amount of antivenom, and 3 times my heart stopped, once for 90 seconds. And somebody said to me, "That's a fair while." And I said, "Well, apparently that's enough to cause mental problems." So I said, "Now I can explain why I'm still doing it."
Oh, my goodness.
I have an excuse.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, God. And do you think because you're so young, maybe because you were able to survive that? Because that just doesn't.
I think I owe my life to very dedicated medical people. They did a great job. I mean, one of them wrote it up as a very complex treatment.
Yeah.
They called in a professor of tropical medicines,
Yeah.
Professor Campbell, and they wanted to write an article for the Australian medical magazine, which I agreed to on the terms that if I lived, I would get copies of the photos they took.
Okay.
Which showed me for some reason, my lips were swollen out. I looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I was 6 weeks paralysed on one side of the body, so,
Yeah, I found that interesting because you said you were bit on one part of the body, yet you were bruised on the other part.
No one can explain it.
No one can explain that.
No one can explain it.
And even with your lips being blue, they couldn't explain that either.
No idea.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And a bit scary too.
It was a bit scary. There were some funny things came out of it because I didn't realise that a friend of mine had actually slipped in. They were only allowing my parents in. He'd seen me and I was blue at the time because of cyanosis, no oxygen, and he went out and told everyone I was dead. So not knowing this, I decided to go and see friends of mine that went to Penshurst Girls High School.
Yeah.
I walked down there and my face was swollen from the drugs.
Yeah.
And my arm was so bad that I could put my fingers into it and I could mould it like plasticine.
Yeah.
And it would stay there, lumps and bumps. I had great fun with that. And I didn't realise that the girls thought I was dead. And I'm just sitting there on a bus seat waiting for them to recognise me. One of them went white as a sheet, dropped her bag, she went, "Oh, my God." And the other girl grabbed me, she said, "What's wrong?" She didn't know me.
Yeah.
And Sue said, "Neville, you're dead." I said, "Can't keep a good man down." And she went, "You're joking anyway." I finally found out that Danny had slipped in and told that. And then about a week after that, I went to visit a friend of mine who was a snake man, not knowing that he'd heard the same story. His mother didn't know me, so she just said, "Oh, he's round the back fishing on the river." And I walked round. It was a foggy night and there was a bit of mist around. And I said, "Hello, Joe." And Jack turned around and went, "You're dead." And I thought, if only I'd thought quickly, I could have said, "I have a message for you."
Oh, right.
I said, "No, mate." I said, only partially. And he looked around, he dropped his beer and thing, and he said, "If I ever needed a beer, it's now." He said, he said, "You scared the hell out of me."
Wow. So after this experience, did it take a while for you to get back to normal, like health-wise?
It did. And I gave up venomous snakes. I said, I won't touch venomous snakes again. That lasted 12 weeks.
Okay.
And then I was back into it again.
Okay. And were you back with it going up to another holiday?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
all
of course.
Yeah.
All over the place. When I was reading some of your adventures in there, I found this interesting that you find a lot of venomous snakes in abandoned homes and underneath tins.
Oh, they love that sort of thing. Love it.
And sleepers, like and why is that?
Well, first of all, there's usually holes under all those things.
Yeah.
And it's sheltered from the weather.
Yeah.
It's a place for the snake to slip away because they don't like being exposed in the open for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Normally they only move in the open when they're trying to warm themselves or hunting for food.
Okay.
So things like that railway sleepers, sheets of corrugated iron, they're ideal for snakes.
Wow.
Absolutely ideal.
Yeah. And the heat of far north Queensland as well.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, you get a
Yeah.
lot of pythons in the old houses too, a lot of tree
Yeah.
snakes, but I caught taipans, death adders, all sorts of things around old houses.
Wow. That's, I guess, and what about the Blue Mountains? What sort of snakes would be in the Blue Mountains? Like, because there's been a lot of rain, for instance, where would they go to? You know, and it's been cold as well.
Usually holes in the ground, hollow logs, the stone fences we have here, dry stone fences, ideal for them.
Really?
Because the holes run for absolute mega distances behind those rocks.
Wow.
And the snakes just slip in there and slip out as they want to.
Wow.
So, that's really helped the snake.
Yeah.
And there's fewer species as you get higher in the mountains.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean there's fewer snakes. There might be quite a few of one particular type.
Wow, that's so interesting. Now, sorry, I've actually gone off track because I wanted to talk about snakes a bit later. I still want to talk about your life because now you then started to do something. You had displays at Westfield and all that. But so was this about the 80s then?
Yeah,
Or
about that. And
Yeah.
I heard that another guy had done a couple of displays in a shopping centre, and I thought, I could do that. I could do that. And I mean, because my thing was talking to people and meeting the public, I thought, yeah. So I actually sent a letter to the manager of Westfield Miranda,
Okay.
which was our nearest big shopping centre, and suggested that they have it. She shocked me because she wrote back, she said, we'd like it in 1 week's time. I didn't have the cages suitable or anything. Luckily, my brother-in-law is a cabinet maker, so I got him for the whole weekend and we built 12 custom cages for displays. I talked O'Brien Glass into providing safety glass for our advertising rights.
Yes.
I had metal stands built and we all had it ready a week later, and she wanted it for a 4-day trial. It was an absolute success.
Yeah.
It was huge. People loved it.
Yeah,
and
I can imagine.
She doesn't know to this day that I overheard her say, look at those people, this guy doesn't know what he's got.
Oh,
so
okay.
she spoke to me later that day and said, Neville, I'd like to book it for a full week. And she said, I'll pay you so. I said, no. I said, no. I said, it'll be $800 for the week. Oh, she said, what? I said, sorry, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
And I knew I had her. And she went, oh, okay. So I promptly went straight down the road and booked another big shopping centre for $200 more for the week.
Oh, there you go.
So I started with Westfield. I did several Westfields, and then we went to every state in Australia.
Wow.
Every state.
Yeah.
Shopping malls everywhere.
Shopping malls everywhere. And it was starting to get a bit huge during that time with the reptiles, I think, because of Crocodile Dundee. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
It
Crocodile Dundee really increased my influence because we decided that we'd do farewell to Crocodile Dundee parties at theatres,
Yes.
welcome to Crocodile Dundee parties, and we also then decided that we'd do a second display and call it Crocodiles of the North. The first night we did that in a shopping centre, you would never have seen a crowd like it. We expected hundreds of people. We got tens of thousands.
Wow.
They were on the balconies, the steps, everywhere, because it was the first time that people had ever seen a saltwater crocodile hand-fed in a shopping centre. And we did it, and it was so successful.
Wow.
So that went all around Australia. Then we decided that let's do something really unique. Let's use big-sized crocodiles. No one does that.
Yeah.
And so we became the only company, my mate and I, that were using large-sized saltwater crocodiles, man-eater size, for special displays around Australia.
I don't even know how you would do that. Would you have to hire a pool, get a swimming pool place out there? Or how did that even work?
Well, it's interesting.
The display, yeah.
We would talk to the people that were putting the thing together, explain what an attraction it would be. And yes, they'd get someone who would supply the pool, a heater for the pool because the crocodiles have to be kept warm. The first one we did was at the Bicentenary in Darling Harbour. And my business partner rang and spoke to the secretary there and said, look, I'd like to. She said, oh, look, we've got most of our attractions ready. what did you want to do? He said, I want to put a crocodile in there. And, of course, she went, you're kidding. You want to sell a crocodile? He said, no, sell it, display it. Luckily, while she was talking and going, no, we don't want that, her boss came in and said, what did I hear about crocodiles? She said, some guy wants to put a huge crocodile in it. He said, put him on the phone.
Oh, my God.
And he said, mate, he said, what's your idea? And Eric told him, he said, somebody will build a pool. You get a carpenter to build the fence. He said, you put advertising up for all of it.
Yeah.
And he said, my mate and I will bring down a large croc. And he said, when you say large, how big? He said, 11 to 12 foot. Wow, yeah, great. It was the biggest attraction they'd ever seen there.
What year was this?
Oh, the bicentenary. I can't even remember what year it was now. Okay. But it was. It made the front page of major newspapers in Sydney. That showed us running away from the croc as he went into the water. Everybody down tools that was there. There were hundreds of people just watching it. Wow. It made television on several channels.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we thought, well, we're not going to make a lot of money out of this, but TNT came to our rescue. They decided to sponsor the crocodile. They got us free trips to the territory.
Wow.
So we came out with a big profit money-wise.
Yeah.
And a winner. So we then started advertising. We did it in South Australia. We did it in Victoria.
Wow.
It was great.
You know what question that's coming up in my head is, how did you even transport the crocodile? I mean, how would you transport it to this space? You know what I mean? Did you put it in a truck or? I mean,
in a big box, flying down in a plane from Darwin.
Okay.
And then once it got to Sydney, well, if we had to go somewhere else, we'd take him by truck.
Okay.
But I remember one night my mate and I slept with a 13-footer in the back of a truck. We had him tied on a pallet and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of a sudden, pitch dark, middle of the night, the whole truck just started bang, bang, bang and moving. And we didn't know whether he'd escaped from the ropes, whether we were there with a 13-foot crocodile. So we're fumbling for torches. We finally found it. And he was just exercising. He was struggling.
He was just stretching.
But he was still tied up and scared the living daylight.
Oh, my gosh. Now, you would need some sort of workers' compensation, I think. Oh, my gosh. That sounds so exciting, actually. So, because the truth is, you do look like a Crocodile Dundee. I mean, you know what I mean? Like more than the person on the movie. You really do. You look more like Poe. I mean, you really do.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I walked into a jewellery store in Queen Victoria building in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I asked about Aboriginal design jewellery.
Yeah.
And the lady said, oh, how interesting. She said, I knew when you walked in the door, she said that you had a personality of your own, not like all these suits we get.
Okay.
And she said, yeah, you're just someone on your own. I said, no. I said, I share my personality with Paul Hogan.
Yes. No, but you are the true. I feel like you are. I mean, he was an actor anyway. So, but your life has been, I think, so exciting. Now, it has been. Now, sorry, people can't see you through the podcast, but you do have these teeth. Are they around your
crocodile teeth?
Okay, crocodile teeth. Are they from any of the crocodiles you've been talking about?
Yeah, one that a mate and I worked with had these two big ones.
Okay.
He died, unfortunately, but not because of us. Okay. And the middle one came from a $250,000 crocodile. That's what it was valued at. That was in the Darwin Croc Farm. It was a rose pink colour. The whole body was rose pink. They called it snowy, but underwater it showed as a goldy pink colour, and unfortunately they never got to breed with it, so when she died the genes were gone, you know.
That must have been not common at all then.
Oh, it was very rare. She was known as Big Red to the local Aboriginals because of the pinkish colour. Yeah. Beautiful crocodile, and quite a large one. But unfortunately, they never got to breed with it. So.
Wow. Well, that tooth isn't as big as the other two. So what crocodile was that again? The really big ones?
This was a fairly big one, but a smaller tooth. But they shed their teeth regularly.
Oh, okay.
So let's say a crocodile gets the average size of male salty in the wild, 40, 50 years of age, he's probably had 3,000 teeth.
Wow.
With 66 at the one time.
Okay.
He's got a full complement.
And do they just fall out?
They just fall out,
They just fall out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you didn't tackle.
No.
Okay.
I remember feeding one at Wonderland. We had a big one there called Maniac. And as he grabbed the chook, I threw him on the rope. I saw one of his teeth fly out. So I jumped in the water and grabbed it while he had his mouth full of chicken. And somebody said, "We thought you were mad. You were going towards the crocodile." I said, "I wanted that too." So it became a big thing. Whenever we cleaned his pond, we got him out and cleaned his pond, everybody be fighting over who could find the teeth at the bottom of the pond.
So fun. Oh, there you go. I've always wondered about that because you do see crocodile teeth, and I've always thought, I wonder if they've had to fight with that crocodile. Now, I'd like to ask a few questions about snakes that I've been thinking about. If you can maybe clarify between deadly snakes versus venomous snakes.
Okay.
I've heard there's a bit of a difference.
A venomous snake has venom, which is mainly designed to kill his prey. So it's a way of feeding himself, and that's it. Secondary is self-defense, and it's very much a secondary thing. We now estimate that a brown snake, for example, after doing studies of them in the wild with 400 or 500 odd wild snakes, we now claim that only about 15% of what appears to be strikes are actually meaningful. The rest of it is bluff. Because the snake doesn't want to waste his venom on a person. He can't eat a person. A deadly snake is one that can cause human deaths.
Okay.
And how they measure how potent the venom is what they call an LD50 test, which is lethal dose of 50% of venom used to kill 50% of a given range of animals, usually mice or rats.
Okay.
So the LD50 is the indication of how deadly they are. And Australia has the top 4 in the world.
What are the top 4?
Number 1 is the inland taipan. Number 2 is the eastern brown snake, which we do get up here. Number 3 is the tiger snake. And number 3 is the coastal taipan. Number 4 is the tiger snake.
Wow. So you said number 2 was the inland taipan, right?
No, number 1 is
that was
the
number
inland
1.
taipan.
But I've heard that they're venomous, but they're actually quite shy, right? So
Very shy.
They're very shy.
They live in a desert area.
Yeah.
They spend most of their time underground because of the heat.
Yeah.
So they only come up on a spring morning for maybe an hour, look for food, go back down underneath the thing when they're warm enough.
Yeah.
So, they're not a snake that's going to bite people. People aren't there to be bitten,
Yeah. Do snakes actually have personalities? Now, for instance, like if someone owns a snake, will they become attached to their owner because they're, the owner's feeding them? Will they start to...
All right. Personally, I'm not a believer in free handling of venomous snakes, but I have seen snakes that have been raised by keepers and have become so quiet they just crawl all over them, just like a carpet snake. It's not my thing because I've had bad bites and I don't want any more, but they do settle down in captivity to a certain extent, but they're all individuals. Some you never trust.
Right.
Some will always bite. So I tend to sort of err on the side of caution.
Yes, for sure.
Don't trust them.
Sure. Don't trust them. Now, how is anti-venom produced? Use that?
They milk the snakes that they want the anti-venom for, and depending on the type of snake, it does take a lot of them. Brown snakes, for example, are our worst killer at the moment in snakes in Australia, but they give very small amounts of venom, generally speaking, so you need so many of them. Taipans give a lot more, so you don't need quite as many. But there's only 2 places that are actually producing it at the moment. That's the Reptile Park at Gosford, venom supplies in South Australia. Both these establishments create the anti-venom. What they do is they milk the snake. The venom is dried under vacuum in a desiccator. It becomes very dangerous then. People have to wear masks and that because if you inhale it, it can cause serious chest problems and that. And they inject anti-venom into horses. Sublethal doses. It doesn't worry the horse at all. The horses build up antibodies and that becomes anti-venom or what we call horse serum. It doesn't affect the length of the quality of the horse's life, but it gives us our anti-venom for our bites.
And if you were bitten and survive, are you actually, this might be a stupid question, but are you more resistant to the next bite or less resistant?
I think sometimes you end up less resistant because it does knock you around. One doctor said to me once, he said, "Neville, we'll never know the internal damage you've suffered,
Yeah.
I do know one guy who had what they call active immunisation, where they injected him with sublethal doses and he built up antibodies. If he got bitten by a tiger snake, he'd get a bad headache.
Oh,
But
wow.
any other snake that was deadly would still kill him. It was only built up
Around that
one
tiger
snake, that
Wow.
one species.
And what do you do if you are bitten?
Right, the first thing is to remain calm. And that can be very difficult because the fear level that most people experience. Always carry a bandage. 15 centimetres wide is ideal. You can buy some that have little squares, little rectangles on them. They're designed for snake bite, and they say that when you stretch them until the rectangles become squares, that's the right tension. I don't think they're quite tight enough, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
You encase the whole bitten limb, stay as still as possible, which is going to be a problem if you're on your own in a remote area and you're bitten on the leg, you're in big trouble if venom is injected.
Would you go to a hospital right away?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Always head for hospital.
Yeah.
Because the only place that you might stay alive, if you have to have antivenom, it has to be where there is experts that can bring you out of any sort of reaction. I mean, if I'd have had my anaphylactic reaction to antivenom anywhere outside of a hospital and the doctors I had available, I wouldn't be here now.
What if you accidentally step on a snake in the bush?
Usually it will attempt to bite.
It will
because
attempt to bite,
as far as it's concerned, it's a physical attack.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So accidents do happen. But generally, people say to me, it's not that easy to be bitten by a snake. And I say, no, it's very difficult to be bitten by a snake unless, like me, you work with them.
Yeah.
No, they don't want to bite people.
And they don't run after you, do they?
No, no. I mean, a friend of mine, a guy did it very well. He's an expert handler.
Yeah.
He got a brown snake all stirred up and the snake came straight at him. So he backed off very quickly, and as soon as he got to a certain distance away, the snake said, good, I've got what I wanted, I've scared you away, and went the opposite direction.
Okay.
They cannot chase you over a distance.
It seems to be like a myth or something that they do.
Oh, absolutely,
run
it's a myth.
after you.
It is a myth.
And with their mouth wide open after you like a crocodile. You know what I mean? It's like, so that definitely doesn't happen.
No, look, as I said, it's only over that very short distance. And this is why I say 90% of what even a brown snake does is bluff, because he's scaring you away to give him room to avoid you.
Right.
He just wants to get away.
He just wants to get away. And I've heard they're really shy anyways, aren't they, for the most part?
Snakes are very shy animals.
Now, I want to talk about snakes in the Blue Mountains compared to other places in Australia. Does elevation affect snakes?
Yeah, there are fewer snakes higher in the mountains. As I said, not necessarily less numbers of that particular species, but not as many species.
Right,
Death adders, for example, are fairly common down the lower mountains. They are found up here, but not very often.
Okay.
Whereas tiger snakes are very common up here and maybe not as common down the bottom. Right. It varies.
And death adders, are they also in North Queensland as well?
Oh, yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah.
And why are there so many venomous snakes in Australia compared to the world?
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, we do have a high percentage of venomous snakes, but the funny thing is too, Evelyn, that if you look at it from the point of view of how they judge deadly snakes overseas, our snakes wouldn't come in the top 30 because they go on the number of people killed by them.
Oh,
and we get, maybe 6 or 8 bites a year, maybe a couple of deaths. Yeah. Whereas the saw-scaled viper in Africa kills more animals than all other animals in his area.
Yeah.
Because he moves at night, natives walk with bare feet, step on the snake, bang, they're bitten.
That is so, well, because, I mean, obviously I'm from the States, and I've had so many people tell me, I'm not coming to visit you, Evelyn. You've got snakes, you've got spiders, it's just too, crazy over there. But I do, because I used to live in Arizona, and I remember, like, rattlesnake bites. I just remember the teachers there were they show us pictures of people being bitten by a rattlesnake, and the effects seemed a lot different.
A lot different.
So why is
horrible? Different type of venom.
Okay.
Mainly hemotoxic effects. Tremendous swelling to the point where it's quite often they have to open up right to the bone to relieve the swelling. So people will get permanent damage, local damage, permanent scarring, but they don't have as many deaths. So they're not as life-threatening, but the size of the fangs, the amount of venom, everything has all got something to do with it. but it is a far different effect to what we get with our deadly snakes.
Okay.
I would hate a rattlesnake bite.
Have you actually been in contact with a rattlesnake?
I've worked with rattlesnakes in America, yeah.
Okay.
But not a snake I want to be bitten by.
Oh, I wouldn't like that either. Like, we've had all this rain, like in the Blue Mountains. So where would snakes go when it is rainy and cold? I think you said they just find little holes.
Absolutely.
And hibernate
they'll
as
use
well?
rabbit burrows. They'll use
Yeah.
under rocks, anywhere.
Do they actually hibernate?
Hibernation for snakes is not like a bear that goes into hibernation and stays there. On a warm day in winter, you'll get snakes out for maybe an hour in the sun, but it is a period of less activity, much less.
Okay. I know that some snakes, they lay eggs, or some actually have live snakes.
Yep.
What's the difference?
Well, all pythons are egg layers. All of them are egg layers. Tree snakes lay eggs. With the venomous snakes, it varies. Taipans are egg layers.
Yeah.
Brown snakes are egg layers. Whereas death adders are live bearers, tiger snakes are live bearers, red-belly black snakes are live bearers. There doesn't seem to be any hard and fast rule.
And what do snakes eat? What do they usually eat, or what's their diet? Not people.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Depending on the size of the animal, size of the snake, larger pythons in Australia have been known to swallow wallabies.
Okay.
We're talking snakes 5 metres long. Overseas, it's not unusual. A couple of people have been swallowed by giant reticulated pythons, things like that. But here in Australia, your average python feeds mainly on rats, mice and birds.
Okay.
And your venomous snakes feed on anything from mice to birds, rats, lizards, other snakes. Some of them are cannibalistic.
Is there a particular snake that is cannibalistic, or are they all cannibalistic?
I believe all venomous snakes can be cannibalistic if the circumstances demanded, but the red-belly black snakes particularly are renowned for it, and it's got to the point where it's wildly exaggerated now because people say, oh, well, where you find red bellies, you won't have brown snakes.
Right.
You won't have as many, but they're still in the same area.
Yeah.
It's just that the black snake will eat browns, but a large brown snake will eat a small black snake too. So it works both ways.
I want you to tell us a little bit about your bite on your hand, where you lost your
index finger.
Yes, your index finger. yeah, because let us know a little bit about that.
Okay, that was a red-belly black snake. Now, there is a headstone in a very old cemetery in Sydney indicating that a young boy in about the 1890s was killed by a red belly. The snake was never positively identified, so whether it was or not, we don't know. If it was, it's the only recorded death. Red bellies are not a killer of humans. My bite occurred when I was in a hurry. I was going out with a mate and I had planned to trip out the Gulf. We were actually looking for inland taipans, and we were going to leave, then go and have dinner, and away we went. And my mate pointed out that one of my red bellies had a swollen mouth. So I took it by the head. I had a look, and there was a bit of bark chip stuck in its jaw. So I took that out, put a bit of ointment on it. As I let him go, I don't know what I did wrong, but he got me on the finger. So off down the hospital, me apologising to the guys for holding up our trip.
Yeah.
And I was in there for 3 days, and the pain was unbelievable. I spoke to Bob Irwin a while back, Steve Irwin's dad.
Yeah.
He said the most painful bite he ever had was a red belly.
Oh, wow.
And I agreed with him. It caused tissue necrosis, and make a long story short, over a period of weeks it ate through both major joints of the finger, and it was either lose the finger or lose the hand, which was very unusual for an Australian snake, but I had to lose the finger.
Yeah, so you had to do that quite quickly then.
Well, I was in and out of there for 6 weeks, and I had to laugh because the surgeon was a Chinese fellow.
Yeah.
And Frankie's name was, I'll never forget him, and Frank said to me one day, he said, we've just had a look at the x-rays, the joints are gone, the head surgeon has said that the finger's got to come off. I said, thank God, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he said, we'll do it in a couple of days. I said, why in a couple of days?
Yeah.
He said, we want to kill the infection. I said, you cut the finger off, there is no infection. He went, yeah.
Yeah.
And away he went. So they did it the next day.
Okay.
The funny thing that came 10 days afterwards, I had to go back and see him. And I knew if I looked at him, I'd start laughing. So I kept my head down. And I said, Frank, when a lizard grows a new tail, it never looks quite the same. And he went, yeah. I said, how different will the finger look when it grows back? And I saw him, the look on his face, he went white. How do I tell this idiot he's not getting his finger back? And I looked up and I said, I'm kidding, Frank.
Kidding.
You know, that man could really swear well.
Oh, how funny. That's so funny. Now, but you haven't, with having the index finger, has that affected anything, or you're still
No,
you're
not
still able
really.
to handle snakes?
Not really.
Yeah,
I still handle snakes,
yeah. Actually, many years ago, you won't remember this, but many years ago, I actually saw you at La Perouse. You happened to be, I guess, maybe standing in for someone.
Yeah, my friend had retired, and there were a couple of us that were standing in to keep the shows going.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So I did a few down there.
Yeah, because that's how I first saw you, and I'm like, oh wow, the Snake Man. And I just had my son, and so I know it was like 20 years ago, but
well, to me, it was a privilege to be asked because John and George Can, their father started the show in 1915.
Right.
It is the longest running show ever known.
Wow.
Probably in the whole world. He gave it up in about 65, I think. The boys took over. George Jr. was my best mate, and John, his brother, was very close to me too. Yeah. So George died quite a few years back. John retired. He's 83. He's just recovered from major surgery, but he was an incredible man, Olympic exponent, champion boxer, champion footballer, but he was a snake man. Right. And he was one of my heroes, actually said to me the night he retired, we had a party at his place, and he said, when are you going to do a show for me, Nev? And I said, are you serious? I thought, what a privilege, know? And he said, yeah, I'm serious. I said, right, you got it. So I went down and did a few. Yeah. And people started saying, are the shows back? I said, yes, the shows are back. Oh, wow, great. Wow. They were on Facebook telling everybody the shows were back.
I loved those shows because I've seen a few of you, like the Blue Mountains Festival, the Winter Festival. You've done a few there. But I like them because the energy is just, everybody wants to run and see the Snake Man,
absolutely.
And it's such a good vibe because you're such a great, storyteller and and a bit of drama, I think. Do you try to create a bit of drama so that Snake wiggles around a little bit more? Or?
I like to use, with brown snakes particularly, I like to use one that's a bit lively. Because mainly because I want people to know what they're up against.
Yes.
And that the snake can be very quick if he wants to. The last time I had a brown snake almost got me on the hand, there were two snake men there and they both swore the same word at the same time. And I said, if you blokes say that, it must have been close. And they said, oh, mate, that was close. I thought, okay, fine. Right. I cut that a bit fine.
Okay. So what you have this book, A Gift from the Snake That Bit Him. Actually, I want you to share the story, how you actually named the book. I love the story.
I'd been bitten by a brown snake and went to hospital, and then I came home again and I had delayed paralysis. When I went back to the hospital, the doctor there knew nothing about snakes. He refused to believe it was the effect of the snakes, and it was too far after the bite. And I said, look, that's it, I'm out. Thank goodness my wife was really worried, and she rang a friend of mine. He said, get him out of bed, get him to ring Professor so-and-so. She said, you ring him, speak to him, and I'm sure he'll say, get Neville out up to the hospital at Katoomba. Not knowing that I was a personal friend of the professor, she rang him and told him, he said, get your husband up there straight away, get him to ring me. Yeah. He's one of the major people in anti-venom. I rang him and I said, g'day, it's Neville here. You're not. I said, yeah. And he said, you idiot. He said, you with all your allergies. I said, yeah. I said, spare me the lecture. He said, mate, you're going to have to go to hospital. He said, tell them to ring me. He said, they're going to have to put you in an induced coma until you overcome the effects. Oh. I said, too late for anti-venom. Of course, and he said, you don't want it anyway. I went up there and the effects started to ease slightly, so I didn't say anything. And then it slowly came good, and I avoided going into the induced coma bit, but I spent another 4 days in hospital. So, I mean, it's not the people to rely on are the ones that really know their stuff, that have treated snake bite before. I mean, this was a doctor, a qualified doctor. Right. He said, oh, no, it can't be snake bite. And I knew. Yes. I knew what was happening to me. He said to me, what was the word he asked me to say? And I said to him, doctor, I said, I'm slurring every word I speak. I can feel my tongue becoming paralysed. Yeah. Can't I get it through to you? Oh, no. And I said to him, how many snake bites have you treated? Oh, I've read a lot of books. I thought, oh my
God.
goodness. Yeah.
Well, that's not good. That's not
Wasn't
good.
very encouraging.
Yeah. So what with your book, A Gift from the Snake That
Oh,
Bit
yes,
Him?
yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Kathy was working on the railway station,
Okay.
and a few days afterwards, two Aboriginal people arrived, a man and a lady,
Yeah.
and they had a little basket with leaves in it. And they said, "Are you the wife of the man who got bitten by the brown snake, the snake man?" Because they all know me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she said, "Yes." And he said, "Boil this up and make a tea. It's very good for snake bite." Now, whether it was good or not, I thought, what a thoughtful thing to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And she said, "Look, can I give you something towards, in return?" And they said, "Oh, no. They said, tell him it's a gift from the snake that bit him."
Oh, there you
So
go.
there it goes.
There you go.
That was the title.
Oh, there you go. And it's perfect too,
Yeah,
isn't
absolutely.
it? Did you drink that? Did you drink it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You've told me that you're thinking about expanding the book or doing another edition, version of the book.
Yeah, well, the book was in sort of two halves. I've already written the expanded part, and my editor has it at the moment.
Okay.
So
Yep.
he's just going to change the last bit slightly so it's
Okay.
seamless.
Yes.
And it will be called No Boundaries because that's when I went overseas and that.
Okay, I do want to talk about that because you used to work for the magazine Scales and Tails.
Yep.
And then you traveled overseas. Now, what were you doing then? What were you doing for the
I
magazine?
was absolutely. They were trying to increase the sales of the magazine overseas, and I was representing them. They saw me as someone interesting for people to talk to.
Yeah.
For one of a better things, and so they asked me would I come up and be a guest speaker at an expo they put on in Brisbane, the magazine put on. And while I was there, they'd invited a chap called Tom Crutchfield to come up from Florida in the States. I'd read a book about Tom, and he was quite a colourful character. He'd been in jail for smuggling and different things. But, changed man and had grown up a lot. I thought, I wonder how I'm going to get on with this guy. And when I got there, I said to the editor of the magazine, I said, "Where's Tom?" And they said, "He's on his way down to meet you now." I said, "Right." So we're in the motel room, came in, white hair, white beard, shook hands, and he looked me up and down. He said, "Heard a lot about you." I said, "Same here." And he said, "You've read the Yellow Book?" I said, "I've read the Yellow Book." And he just smiled. He didn't try to, say he had done it. And he said to me, "How old are you, Neville?" And we're exactly the same age. We talked till 5 o'clock in the morning. We clicked. He's got incredible knowledge. He's got an absolutely incredible memory. He has the Latin name of every snake he's ever seen. And we just clicked because he's a guy who's been around and done it.
Yes.
And whether it was some of what he'd done might have been illegal at the time, but he's travelled all over the world collecting the most dangerous snakes in the world. And he saw me as a kindred spirit.
Yes.
And he said to Steve that night, who rang the magazine, he said, "I want Neville in America." And Steve said, "I think Neville and I want that too."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, let's make it happen." Now, I'd only been on Facebook a few weeks.
Yes.
And I was only there because Steve had told me he wanted me to be a Facebook public page.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less.
Yes, yeah.
And I said, "Okay, all right." And I had about 400 people, even within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And the mate said to me, "You're very popular." The next day, I had 800.
Wow.
Because Tom got on there and said, "Hey, I've met the real Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah.
This guy's the real thing." And then one of his friends who was out here wrote me a thing saying that I was the funniest snake man he'd ever met. I don't know whether that means humorous or peculiar, but he said, unbelievable. He said, really enjoyed his thing. So I got all this personality. And the next thing these people are saying, you've got to come to America. So Steve arranged for me to go to a huge reptile expo in Chicago. I rang Tom and I said, "Tom, will you go into Tinley Park?" He said, "I hadn't planned on it. Are you?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "I'll be on the next table." So we were right next to each other. And then I went to Tom's place and stayed with him for a week down in Florida. He's got 2,000 animals in his collection.
Wow.
I got to play with king cobras for the first time, gaboon vipers from Africa, rattlesnakes from America. And I had to laugh because Tom wrote to a friend of mine over here that he also got on very well with. And he said, "Nev's a natural." He said, gave him a giant king cobra. He said, "He's got a snake hook." He said, "Just let him go." He said, "He had a ball." And my mate, very straight face, said, "If Nev's using a snake stick, it's because he doesn't want to show you Yankees up." Thanks for the fan mail. But Tom and I have stayed. Tom sent me a copy of a book that he wrote with a friend of his.
Okay.
I sent him a copy of my new book only recently.
Yeah.
And he's always saying to me, when are you going to come over and stay again, you know?
Yeah.
Neither of us are getting any younger, so I don't know, you know.
Yeah. What part of Florida?
Homestead.
Homestead.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay. I've been to Homestead, actually. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's so interesting.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that was the second time I'd been to America. The first time was
Yeah.
nothing to do with snakes. And I thought, this is great. And then shortly after that, Steve said to me, we want you to go to Germany, the biggest expo in the world at Ham in Germany, and to travel with a friend of mine who unfortunately died a few weeks ago. He was an older man than me, and he was another one of my mentors.
Yeah.
So I got to go with Peter, who was a German herpetologist, although he spent most of his life in Australia.
Yeah.
I went over there, but just before I left, one of the guys I'd become friends with in America at the expo rang me. He said, Nev, he said, would you like to go to Canada? I said, man, I'd love to go to Canada. Speak to Tom, because he said, I think they'll want you there. Anyway, I rang Tom and I said, you were the guest speaker there last year? He's on the guest speaker again this year. He said, give me 48 hours. He rang me back within 48 hours and he said, you're on the plane.
Wow.
So I flew from Germany straight to Canada.
Oh, my goodness.
Unbelievable.
That's so interesting that you just said the largest reptile expo is in Germany, or that time, or
Huge.
Well,
Absolutely enormous.
I find that interesting. I mean, sorry, now this is you're really gonna. My knowledge is not. Are there snakes in Germany? Or
It's not so much that there's snakes in Germany, but there's collectors there that collect from everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
huge.
All right.
There were so many Australian
interesting.
snakes there for sale, you know.
Oh, so they actually sell snakes at this expo.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My word.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. All the big expos overseas, if you've got a license, they'll sell you snakes. And I noticed with the German people, they don't spend as much time looking at the displays as they do here in Australia. Some of them came in with their boxes ready. They had already obviously arranged a sale. They go straight to the person, get what they want, and leave.
And Lee, they're very efficient.
Oh yeah, very much
Germans
so.
are very efficient.
Very much so.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your what are you doing now? I think you've written another book. Is that correct?
Well, I've had two passions in life.
Yeah.
One was the reptiles. The other one was a particular martial art that I
Okay.
studied for years. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to have the hero of a novel do that particular martial art and use it in stopping these bad guys that are smuggling wildlife.
Oh, okay.
And it grew from that. Plus the fact that something I'll be talking about in the expanded book, I also was requested to train Indigenous Aboriginal rangers in North Queensland. And I got to meet a lot of them. And in doing my research for the book, which features areas of Northern Territory, I said to my wife, look at this. I said, I know these guys.
Wow.
I said, these rangers here are people I personally met and trained myself. I couldn't believe it. It just made it so much exciting.
Oh.
But there's historic notes in the book about the actual martial art and how it came about. There are people mentioned there that did actually exist, and I know. There are crocodile collectors, catchers there that are mentioned that are still extant today. The rest of it is just all fiction, and one of the two main characters is an Indigenous Aboriginal bodyguard, and the other one is a martial arts instructor who teaches the police and other people. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. And the martial arts, it's called Wing Chun.
Wing Chun.
Wing Chun.
It's a southern Chinese style.
Okay. And is it, because my son did Hapkido.
Yep.
It seems like they have all these different levels of martial arts.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wing Chun is huge at the moment. I think they estimate between 3 and 4 million people are involved in it worldwide. It started in China. It came out of China to Hong Kong in 1949 with, I don't know whether you've seen it in the movies, Ip Man.
No.
Very popular Chinese martial art movies. They've done about 4 of them now.
Yeah.
The same guy playing each part. Because I'd been involved for years with it, and because a lot of it is very badly taught, I thought it was a chance for me to talk about Wing Chun as it should be.
Yeah.
As well as writing a book. And a review of my book came out yesterday in Wing Chun Illustrated magazine, which is the most respected of all the magazines there. And the guy, you would have thought I paid him. He
Wow.
raved about it.
Oh, that's good.
He said,
Excellent.
this should be a movie. He said, it could be the start of a series. I want to see where it goes from here. So I'm now writing another one.
Oh, fantastic.
Because I did leave a couple of questions up in the air.
Okay.
That if people are alert and they really get it, hey, he didn't tell me what happened there.
Oh, okay.
That's in the next book.
Oh, good.
That's in the next book.
Was Bruce Lee, did he practice Wing
Bruce Lee
Chun?
practiced Wing Chun,
Is that why?
Yep.
Is that, okay.
Yep,
Alrighty.
absolutely, yeah.
Wow. I remember reading in the first book, because I haven't read this book yet, but I will. You decided to do the practice. Is it because you were a smaller young man? And you thought with the strength-wise?
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
Why?
I knew that I didn't have the metabolism to ever be a muscle-bound player.
Yeah.
And I looked at Bruce Lee and thought, wow, if I could get toned like that.
Yes.
And I worked hard at it. I trained 6 days a week.
Yeah.
A lot of it just on building, as much tone as I could.
Right.
And didn't realise how much it worked because I was pretty shy, as I said.
Yes.
And most guys were bigger than me. And one day it was really hot and everybody training was taking their shirt off. I took my shirt off and one of the guys said, my goodness, he should change his eyes and call him Bruce.
Oh,
And
there
I
you
went,
go.
what? And I thought, hey, I'm the only one here who's got the six-pack. This is
there you
great.
go.
So that inspired me even more.
Oh, good. Oh, that's so good. You really are inspiring because when I was reading through the book, it's like you just do things. You don't think about it and you just do things. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, that's what I got from the book, this adventurous sort of person who does things and doesn't even know how it's going to work out, but you just do it. Like with the hitchhiking at 16, like that was just crazy to me. And there were other things in the book. Just you just do things, and for the first time, you do these interesting displays you've done all over. You write books. You do these. They're just so entrepreneurial in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I've always thought that maybe I was basically just selfish because my mother thought I'd never hold a job down.
Yeah.
I was always off to Queensland. And I mean, even the job at Skippy, I loved it. And I said, look, I've got to go back to Cairns.
Yes, yes.
She found that really hard to understand. Mum died a few months ago. She was 93. And she was so proud of me.
Yeah.
So proud of me. She said, you've done so much.
Yeah.
And I think the thing for me is, unfortunately, with the increase in knowledge and appreciation of reptiles, there's been an increase in ego trippers.
Yeah.
And I just want to see my face on Facebook,
Yeah, yeah.
And they make claims that aren't true and they exaggerate their years of experience. I mean, it's not rocket science. If you've handled venomous snakes for 5 years, you should be considered pretty good at what you do. The difference between my 60 years and 20 with someone else, it's not big because 20's plenty to do it. It's just done it a little bit more. But, you have people come along and they actually trained with me 8 years ago and then they say, oh, yeah, I've been doing this for 15 years. You think, why?
Yeah.
If there's not something lacking, why do you claim that?
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to do what I do, and I think maybe it was just a bit selfish. I never thought about what my mum would think or what anybody else would think. I just did it, and that's just been me. And somebody asked me about things I've done, Evelyn, that failed. I said countless projects that failed. I like to enjoy the anticipation of something happening. I mean, the book sales for the new book are really slow because no one knows me.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that will change,
with
reviews and that. But you've got to be mentally strong enough to say, okay, it didn't work. I enjoyed the anticipation. I'm not going to worry about it. And I'll try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's been disappointments, there's been good things, so that balances out.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I just think you're such an exciting spirit because you're always doing something new. Now, do you still, actually, I just want to ask on that vein, are you doing any snake handling courses or do you still remove snakes if people call you up?
I still remove snakes if people call me up. I'm not doing the courses anymore.
Okay.
A mate of mine took over that part of the business.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing the show circuit anymore. But if he needs me, it's a mutual trust thing. There's a lot of snake men out there that I don't trust.
Yes.
He's one of the few that I think would keep the standard I've tried to set.
Yes.
And he thinks the same of me. So if he needs somebody to do a show, he'll pay me to do it. So it's good. I still keep my hand in. I still enjoy it.
Yeah,
I've cut down on the number of snakes, but I still keep a couple of very venomous snakes that, are pets of mine. And
okay.
So I'll never give up the passion. This is something that Tom Crutchfield said to me. He said, Nev, he said, how do men like you and I retire? He said, we can't.
Yes.
It's our
yes.
life.
Yeah.
And we can't. You know, there's just no way.
Wow.
When I said semi-retirement, people went, I never thought you'd do it. I said, hang on, don't picture me giving it away. You know?
Well, I mean, it started when you were 5. I mean, your whole life has been about, reptiles, crocodile, snakes, and educating people. If anyone's listening right now who is young, and they want to go on this snake path or this journey, what would you, what sort of advice would you give them?
Okay, things have changed since I was young. I mean, for example, I got the job at Wonderland when I was the reptile curator at the wildlife park there, merely based on my experience and my reputation. They said a piece of paper from a uni wouldn't make me able to handle giant crocodiles and do the snake shows.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted. But if somebody wants to do it as a living, I would suggest these days it's worth the tertiary education.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get volunteer by all means at a wildlife park or a zoo. Get any experience you can.
Yeah.
Volunteer with someone like me. I mean, I can't help anybody now, but there are snake men that will. And the more you do, the better. But never underestimate the value of having a degree these days.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of what you need. Experience was really important back then, but now
it's changed quite a lot.
Yeah, it has. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Been a pleasure to be here.
And I'm so excited about reading this book and reading your next book and seeing the movie coming out. And it's just got so much going on. So thanks a lot, Neville. And I'll make sure to have you come on the next show when you have your new book out.
My pleasure, and thank you very much, Evelyn.
Thank you so much for your company. Please tune in next week to Life's Rich Tapestry, where you will hear another courageous conversation spoken from the heart.